which means we're live. Your attention up, or not up front, but on the thing that I'm showing off. You can watch the screen, you can watch the Zoom room. I don't mind, as long as you're off your phone or you're focused on what I'm showing you. It's all I ask while we are live. Okay, looking good so far. I know some of you are still connecting. That's okay. I'm just going to briefly go through where we left off yesterday. I believe we got through, because sixth period got a little bit separated from you guys. I believe we made just the art brush, but we hadn't applied it to any shapes yet, right? We went through the brush cup and then the plus button. We did art brush and all that stuff. That sounds familiar, correct? Cool. So what we've done in essence, this is an important part of graphic design, is building up like a toolkit or a set of designs that we have kind of like a collection. You can call them assets because they're little pieces that you can use throughout all of your different projects. And in creating an art brush like this, it allows you to really easily apply a texture or like mostly just used for texture to kind of give your digital arts a little bit more kind of grunge, kind of grit to them, because digital art has a tendency, especially graphic design, to look really, really clean as compared to stuff that's printed or painted or drawn. It's got that imperfections because it comes from the physical world, right? By doing stuff like these, creating these art brushes and these patterns, we can emulate some of that grit. But that's mostly just kind of the theory of how graphic design works instead of what we're going to do for the purposes of this assignment strictly. So if you can notice, you can move, after you've made your art brush, you can move all of these guys around, but we don't want to do that exactly. We can just delete these rectangles since we have used, or they've served their purpose in creating our art brush. If your screen doesn't look like mine, remember you got to go to Window and then Workspace and make sure that this Essentials Classic box is checked, so that you have access to your brush cup and your bigger tools and stuff like that. So the next steps in this retro line design thing is to actually create like some Art Nouveau style, Great Gatsby kind of style. We want some motion to the actual design so that it looks a little bit more interesting. Since we've made this art brush, we can apply it to any path. So if I take a brush real quick, B on my keyboard, I can just draw. Oh, I have a white stroke. Let me make that a little easier to see. So here I have this stroke, right? I can click on my brush cup and then click on my art brush 1 that I created, and it's going to apply that texture, in theory. Should. There it goes. It's going to apply that texture down the path that I created, and then I can adjust this however I need later on with stuff like the direct selection tool. I can move these specific anchor points around, and it's going to respond because it's applying that pattern that we created instead of just kind of making the brush change literally. So to make the retro design, we just need, hold on, this is the wrong tool. Let me delete all these loose anchor points real quick. We need a perfect circle in order to make some of the corner pieces, the half piece, the 3/4 piece, and then like the pizza slice version. And then we'll also use a straight piece. And these are gonna, you want to think of these kind of like Legos, where you're just building out different pieces. Bless you, bless you. Yeah. So to get to your circle tool, I'm highlighting the shape tool right here, or the rectangle tool, I mean. If you click and hold on that rectangle tool, you're gonna get other shape options, or you can also press L on your keyboard for the ellipse tool. When I press L, it's gonna change my rectangle to a circle over here. Ellipses are anything that's round, right? In math, but we want a perfect circle. And in order to have a perfect rectangle, which would be a square or perfect circle or whatever, if you click and hold and then press the shift key, you're going to notice these pink lines appear, and it's going to scale up evenly or down evenly. By holding shift, that's going to give us our perfect circle. And you know that you've made your art brush correctly. I'm going to Alt, scroll, and then spacebar, click and drag to move my circle over here so you can see it a little bit better. You know you've made your art brush correctly, that when you click on the circle like this that you just made, and then you click on the zebra pattern, the art brush in the brushes cup window right here, it's going to apply that around the outside edge, and you can see a white and a black section with a hole in the middle, or not a hole in the middle, but space in the middle, so to speak. And when you resize that, it's also going to scale depending on how big or small the circle is. So something to keep in mind for this next step is that if your circle, the path for your perfect circle is too small, it might create some folding issues. Like if I go really tiny here, I'm losing some data, even though it still looks pretty clean. I'm losing some data because my path is really tiny. You can see it's gonna start to kind of fold over and do something like that right there. It's gonna do some weird stuff if your circle is too small. So if you find you're trying to make the pizza slice, especially the corner piece, and it keeps doing stuff like this, it means your circle path is probably too small. You just need to make it a little bit bigger. Okay, so we need 3 circles and a straight piece in order to sort of build our toolkit that we're gonna lay out our retro line design with. So to quickly make 2 more circles, I'm gonna click on my 1 circle that I made with the zebra art brush. Then I'm gonna hold Alt on my keyboard, same way that we duplicated that rectangle the first time. I'm gonna click and drag 2 more circles, holding Alt the whole time, off of the first one, and then letting go of Alt. Anytime you make a duplication, like you see here, you want to let go of your mouse first, because Alt is the key that's making it duplicate. If you let go of Alt first, like if I click and drag, oh, let me get out of that. Click on this, and then Alt, click and drag. If I let go of Alt before the mouse, it's just going to move it instead of duplicate it. Like if I let go of the mouse first. Hi, good morning. We're in the Zoom room, just kind of breaking down the pieces for the retro line design. Okay, so now that we have 3 circles of the same size, we need to slice these up into the corner, the 3-corner, and the half circle. We're going to start with the 3-corner piece. Okay, I'm going to zoom in on this top circle right here. I'm going to take my direct selection tool, which is A on my keyboard. You notice my cursor kind of turns that white color. When I hover over this, there are 4 anchor points, 5 technically, there's one in the middle. But there's 4 anchor points around the outside edge that's creating these lines like this. You want to kind of estimate-ish the middle distance between a top and a side. Let's think about this like a compass, right? We have north, south, west, and east, or never eat soggy worms. That's right. Okay, so I'm going to click about in the middle. Let me turn on my little indicator here. I'm going to click about in the middle between the north and the west points on my compass. And you want to see how you see that blue line that my cursor is kind of attaching to with a little bit of I can't read what it says exactly. It says path. You want to click on the path with the direct selection tool about halfway between the 2. When you do that, it should create a new anchor point. Come on. Do my thing. It's not doing what I need it to do. All right, let's try this. Okay, and then there we go. All right, so I had the wrong tool. We're actually going to use the pen tool instead of the direct selection tool, because by pressing P on your keyboard and doing that same process of locating that path, you can see it's kind of hard to see with the black and the white overlapping. But there's a little plus sign or a little asterisk if you hover over the path like this. If I click, that's going to add a new anchor point. It's going to say shape expanded, and then I can press the delete key, and it will remove that anchor point. It will remove that piece of information from the path, from this expression here, giving me the 3-corner piece like this. And I can resize this by holding Shift to maintain the perfection of the circle. You can make this larger or smaller, and it's still going to retain that 75% corner. Does that make sense? Just to recap, I'll go over that one more time. Your circle by default has 4 points. It's got north, east, south, and west. We're going to take our pen tool, which is P on our keyboard, and hover over the path. Make sure that you can read the pink word path in between the north and the west point of our compass. I'm going to click in about the middle. It's going to add a new anchor point. It's going to add a new square like that. And then you press the delete key to get rid of it in that sense. It's a very similar process to make the half circle. But instead of creating an anchor point, we're actually just going to click on the north anchor point, the one right at the top here. You could click on the south too. This is the one. Sorry, I got confused. When you're making the half circle, this is the one where you use the direct selection tool, which is A on your keyboard. I'm going to select this top anchor point and press the delete key, and that will take off the top half of my shape, giving me a half piece, something that'll wrap around. And then the final step, I will help you guys with this individually. The final step, we're going to use a different set of tools again. This one's located in the eraser tool kit. Just as a disclaimer, I want you to avoid using the eraser as much as possible in this class because it works kind of backwards in the way that you expect it to. And we want to avoid accidentally undoing all of our hard work, all of our vector stuff. So anyways, click and hold on the eraser tool, or you can press C on your keyboard. You're going to look for this scissors tool right here. By pressing C, let me close this. By pressing C, my eraser turns into a pair of scissors. And I just need to select two of the points on the circle, two of the compass points. So like north and east, or actually, there might be a more efficient way to do this. Let me try that real quick and let's see. I'm going to duplicate this and then take my scissors tool and I'm going to cut off one anchor and see if this works. So this part's kind of different. It doesn't work. Okay, we're going to do it the easy way. So instead of using the scissors tool, sorry, forget I said that. That's the way I've done it in the past. We're going to take the half corner, hold Alt, click and drag to duplicate that, and then do the same process that we did to remove the top half. We're going to remove one more anchor point. So that's A on your keyboard to get your direct selection tool. You need to click on either the top left or the top right anchor point. When you click on that, it turns blue and you'll get these straight up and down lines. You press delete, that will give you your corner points. And then you can resize these however you need with the regular selection tool, which is V on your keyboard. Let's resize that a little bit. Resize that a little bit. And then we'll bring this guy down and resize this a little bit. So what we're doing here is building a little toolkit, kind of like a sandbox that we can hold Alt and click and drag copies of into the artboard space. And then you can adjust these. If you hold Shift, your shapes will snap. And you want to kind of stick them together like this, and you can see how they're going to start to form the retro line design. Let me put this up here. You want to try and get it to match as best you can. It might not be perfect. Oh, okay. I've never seen that before. I didn't know how that happened, but that was cool looking. So now what you want to do is click and drag different pieces that you've made in your sandbox. I'll help you guys make your sandboxes. You want to click and drag the different pieces and kind of stick them together like this to create this flowing retro line design. Right now, we only have corner points, though. We need some straight portions that can overlap and give it a little bit more of a rigid direction as compared to the fluid, like contoury direction. There's this tool right here called the line segment tool, which is right underneath this pen with like the little squiggle. If you look at the direct selection tool, it's 1, 2, 3 tools down. This will make a line segment. You just click and drag to make a line, and then do the same thing. Apply the brush texture on top of that that you created earlier, and you should be able to rotate this. And now you have that as a part of your toolkit. I know I'm going fast, but I want to be able to help you guys one-on-one. This is just a thing that you can reference later on. And then for the retro line, you're just stacking up these pieces so that you get this cool sort of, let me shrink this down a little bit. You get this cool effect of the textures kind of folding over one another. This the video walks you through this process as well from Unit 1. So if you go to where's Canvas? You go to the modules and then look at this Unit 1 line page. This video right here will also walk you through it in another way if the way that I've shown you so far is not making sense. Okay, so I'm gonna pause the Zoom room for now. I'll reopen it to talk about vectorizing in about 10 minutes. Make sure that you guys are getting the art brush so that you can finish this line, and then we'll start combining them together into one artwork. Okay, cool. Thank you for listening. I'm gonna check these out. If you get back in the Zoom room, you'll be able to see my screen. there's a lot of tools that Illustrator can provide you to vectorize something, to take something from a raster and turn it into the vector relationship that we're seeing Illustrator take advantage of. So I see 7, 8 of us. Let me update attendance real quick, and then I'll get into the next portion. Okay. Okay, so to vectorize something, you first need an image to vectorize. The most common use case of vectorizing things is when you do a sketch for a logo of some kind, and you want to turn it into a digital file that's a lot easier to share and a lot easier to work with, so that you just have access to it and can scale it up and down wherever you need. So before we do any of that, we need an image. And if we go to the modules in Canvas here, there's a new thing in resources for copyright-free images. There's 3 different sites that I use all the time to get my copyright-free images for my projects. You can also use photos that you own or that you took because you own those. But we want to avoid just pulling stuff straight off of Google because there's some legal trouble that you could get into as a pro graphic designer doing stuff like that. But for the purposes of class, I just want to show you how to find copyright-free images. So I have access to Unsplash. I hope you guys do too. There was some things changing with the like the blocking plan and stuff. Unsplash is my favorite, but there's also Pixabay and Pexels. Those are all going to have good royalty-free stock images for you to use. But let's actually, I'm going to vectorize a shoe. Say that this is my this is a design that I drew up. Okay. On Unsplash, there's a green download free button right here at the top. You click on that, it's just going to put it straight into, or it's going to ask wherever you want to put these files. These are throwback teachers for the yearbook, so surprise. I'm just going to throw it in this folder for now. To set up your document to vectorize, you're going to go up to File and then click New. And then just click Create again, because it's still 5 by 5 inches in RGB color. Click Create. That's going to give us another 5 by 5 inch workspace. There's a specific panel called the Layers panel right here. It's the little like rhombus sort of situation towards the bottom of the column. These are your layers. Illustrator is not as much of a layer-based program as Photoshop is, but it is important to understand how these layers work for the case of this vectorizing and for the process in the future. So you see layer 1 is currently blank. You can hit the same plus button that you saw on the art brush tool to create a new layer. It's the universal add new for all the Adobe products. But to get your image into your artboard, onto your white space here, you go up to File, and then you pick Place. And then you find that image that you just saved. I'll go to Quick Access. It should be right here. Then I'm going to click Place. You can see it attaches to my cursor. And wherever I click, it's going to fill that in with the image, which is way bigger than my artboard, way more than I bargained for. So I'm going to scale this down a little bit. You want to hold Shift whenever you resize something in Illustrator, because if you don't, you end up with squashed artwork, and it's not good. Okay, so once you have your image inside of your artboard space, if we go back to that layers panel, you can see that now it has, if you click on this little drop down, this little arrow thing, you can see that all that in there is currently an image. We can't trace over this yet. I mean, we could technically with the brush tool, but it's kind of hard to see because they're both taking up a lot of like color real estate. They're both taking up a lot of screen real estate. We want to do what's called setting this to a template, and then we're going to draw on a new layer over top, kind of like a sheet of tracing paper being placed over the image you're trying to vectorize. So I'm going to click this plus button to create a new layer. It's going to create an empty layer. Nothing's going to change on the scene that I'm working with here. But the next step, you want to double click inside of this gray space. You see where there's kind of nothing next to the word layers, avoiding that circle. Right? If you double click on that gray space, you're going to be prompted with this layer options pop-up. The only thing that you need to do is set it to a template. You need to just check this box that says template. And then when you click OK, it's going to do what's called locking and lowering. This image can no longer be moved around, and it lowers the opacity, which is how transparent something is. Lowers the opacity so that we can trace over it. This is like our sheet of tracing paper. However, since this layer, you can see I have layer 1 selected, is a template, I can't actually do anything on it. I'm clicking and no art is happening. It's because you need to go on to layer 2 in order to actually vectorize this. I'm going to use the brush tool. And then vectorizing is just tracing. The same way that you would trace something in real life, you want to take a lot of different, I'm going to go quick, right? It's not going to be the prettiest. But I'm tracing over the key parts of this art that I'm vectorizing on that second layer, so that if I just do some laces real quick, let's get some of this. This is bad, but hold on. Yours will look better. We'll put a little star in there. Okay, so I've traced over my shoe. I can now click this square right here, where it's right underneath the eye on layer 2. And when I click that square, you can see it says toggle visibility. That will remove the image that I was tracing and only leave me with the paths that I can adjust, and I can change the stroke color on. Let's make it red so that it matches the shoe, like this. And I have essentially, this is kind of the crash course, the quick way of vectorization. And if I open this back up, something to keep in mind is that the paths will move, the trace will move, but the image will not. So you want to be careful moving it around like I did in the example. So what you guys need to do to recap in our last 2 minutes here, so you have this video accessible later on. You get an image. Let me delete. Let me just go lightning round. Okay, so you get an image. You go File, Place. I lost it. Where's Place? There we go. Place. And then we're going to take that image that you found on Unsplash, or an image that you took, or a drawing that you made, resize it to fit the canvas by holding Shift to make things smaller evenly so you don't squish them. I'm holding Shift every time I'm clicking on this edge anchor point, resizing that so that it fits inside my 5x5. Picked a really big image. Okay. You can also grab from other anchor points, but the corner is the one I find the easiest. Okay, then you're going to double click in this gray space, set it to a template, create a new layer with the plus button right here. And then with your brush tool on layer 2, that's where you'll do your tracing, your vectorization of whatever shape you choose. Okay, so I will not be here tomorrow, unfortunately, but I will have some videos for you guys to check out in more detail. Canvas, message me any questions you might have. Because I won't see you, have a good weekend. Be safe, be smart, make good choices. Take care. I will see you guys all again on Monday. There'll be a video tomorrow that I'm making on how to arrange these and export them. So we didn't cover that today, but don't stress because I'm making that tonight and you'll be able to see it later. Okay. Thank you guys for listening. I appreciate it. Sorry, it was kind of a, we didn't go exactly to plan.